Chetan, Chetan, it's a pleasure, privilege talking to you. Whenever I talk to you, I come out energized, enlightened, and educated. I'm sure the viewers will have the same thing. So we should meet more often. And I'm sure a voice like yours, which goes without, which is not bogged down by dogma or not bogged down by a certain cap which you hear, and who has a vision and who has followed the EV dream when nobody talked of EV. It's great to have you with us. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure interacting with you.
Thank you so much, Arun. Thanks.
After that lovely conversation on a very important topic, we now head into another panel discussion on road to climate conscious delivery. Joining us for this discussion are Prasad Sriram, CEO, Cogos Technologies, Anant Nahata, MD Exicom Telesystems, Rajit Arya, co-founder and CEO Dispatch Vehicles, Dr. Karuna Shankar Pandey, Director Last Mile Operations, Amazon India, and Som Kapoor, Partner Automotive EY, who will be moderating the session.
Welcome to this session on first mile and last mile. We're going to try and keep this and play this by the air. But we have an interesting panel here. Let me first go ahead and tell you who we have on board with us. We have people who make these cars. We have people who run these cars. We have people who provide batteries to these cars. And we have people who charge money to sell the technology to both battery manufacturer and car manufacturer. Let me give a few names to a couple of these people in no particular order of preference, since Anand is all part of the battery ecosystem to a great extent. And by chance, he's also the managing director for Exicom. Exicom is one of the big players in this battery game. And so they're one of the big boys on the battery side. Everybody talks about battery these days. So he's making money on the battery side. We have Mr. Sriram. Morning, Mr. Sriram. Mr. Sriram actually runs the technology part of this gig. So everyone's keeps telling me that the money lies in software. Hardware is becoming monotonous and too difficult to manufacture. So he's the one who's making all his money selling software to both Anant, to our next manufacturer, Mr. Arya. He's the one who's actually making the products you will be using for your first mile, last mile deliveries. So Rajit, welcome on board. And hopefully some of your products are doing better from a technology as well as from a safety perspective. And finally, I think not the least, we have the man who's going to pay all of these people. So we have Mr. Karuna Shankar. He's actually a director at Amazon. And his official designation goes that he's part of the last mile business. And the topic today is first mile, last mile. Mr. Karuna Pandey, can you please explain to us and start with what is first mile and last mile, and what do we mean by this topic of today? If you could lay that out for a few of us.
Sure. For us, at Amazon, and probably it's true for everybody, first mile is where all the inventory is. This is where when the customers place the order, the inventory gets picked, packed, and shipped out. So that's the first mile, where I would say connect with the sellers, connect with getting the inventory in, placing the inventory at the right place, so that in the fastest way we can get to the customers. And of course, a whole lot of sustainability initiatives around a first mile, because these are large buildings. So whether it is solar rooftop or getting the inventory at the right place so that we move minimum, that's the first mile. Then middle mile is imagine if a customer is in Bangalore, the inventory is in Delhi, then we move it through sort centers, which is called the middle mile, so that we can still do bulk movement in trucks or rail or air in the fastest and most efficient, sustainable way. That's the middle mile, where we sort packages and get to the last mile. Last mile is where I would say the connect to the customer is. That is where we deliver the smiles. That is where the customer, after clicking and paying or doing a cash or pay on delivery, is waiting for a package to come. So that is where we deliver the smiles across. And from an Amazon perspective, we have 100% serviceable PIN codes covered. So in a way, we have a last mile station, which is probably near every customer in a way that most efficient, fast, safe and reliable way we can deliver. In the context of the topic today, pretty interesting, Som, in terms of sustainability. And we all know, I mean, world is a shared resource now, and how do we all really pitch in and make sure that we do everything which is good, obviously for the business, but good for the community, good for the customer, good for the society at large from a sustainability perspective. I think over the next 50 minutes, we'll certainly go deeper in some of those things. But as I lay out, I think the opportunities are across the first mile, middle mile, and last mile, which I think each one of us are in our own way, either through the technology or through the process or systems trying to address so that we really get to a net zero carbon emission.
Sure. I mean, Mr. Pandey, they say that you get a few intelligent people in a room, they'll make a simple problem very complex. So you've done just exactly that. We started off by asking you what is first mile, last mile. Now you've brought in a middle mile as well. So we'll have to now figure out what this middle mile will be doing. But I actually have another question for you. Since you come from Amazon, what are you and your brothers alike? What is this fascination of this 10-minute game? I mean, we always loved Domino's Pizza in 30 minutes. You're all just fighting one game now, which is essentially saying sometimes, I have young boys at home, you tell them, I want to buy this. Why don't we Dunzo this? Why don't we bling this? Why don't we get one person, Amazon will give it in Prime in a 24-hour turnaround from one part of the. Why are you guys fascinated about 10 minutes? What's the love for 10 minutes?
Yeah, so very interesting question. So, I mean, at Amazon, we always work customer backwards. So we innovate on behalf of customers. We make sure that any a need which a customer may have is what we always work backwards from. And the key, I would say, vectors in this, speed is an important one. But the other thing is in terms of selection, convenience, and one which we always over-index in Amazon above speed, convenience, and selection is safety. So for us, safety is paramount. So if we always make sure that while we deliver to customer all these three attributes of selection, price, convenience, speed, but we always keep safety of our associates, and road safety is an important aspect for us.
So you took me away from 10 minutes to safety. So what I'm understanding is that the gig is safety. Then should I think of it from that lens rather than time?
As I said, I mean, there will be customer needs which we'll always work backward from, but we will always at Amazon over-index on safety rather than going down a road which may not be sustainable. And it all ties up to our topic today, right? So when we do 10-minute delivery, it's a point-to-point. How much environmental load we are adding. So we at Amazon would like to be really mindful of safety as well as sustainability. Now you'll say we brought in another subject, but that's the subject
as well.
of today.
Well done. Well done. No, I mean, I'm gonna turn this on its head now, and I'm actually gonna bring down the monkey in the room. I don't want to call it the elephant in the room anymore. Anant, you run one of India's most how do I call it, innovative companies to that extent, right? You guys believe in innovation quite a bit. So as the MD of Exicom, put that hat on. Tell me, what are you doing from an innovation perspective to bring down the TCO? Because the elephant in the room in this business remains the TCO, right? And what are you doing? How are you innovating, Anant?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that question. So when we talk about innovation and bringing down cost of the last mile logistics or the total cost of ownership, right? Today, before that, like everybody is looking for range, availability, and reliability. So we have to consider these factors when we are talking about bringing down the cost. And in this, there is an ecosystem play, not just the battery, not just the OEM, but as battery manufacturers, we are really trying to design safe batteries, batteries which have longer range, which can have lower downtime and obviously high efficiency, high charging and discharging efficiency. Similarly, the OEMs who are producing the two-wheelers, three-wheelers, they are on this learning curve and using highly efficient drivetrains to get more kilometers out of the watt hours produced by the batteries. And there are a lot of software companies, technology companies who are helping the riders in finding the right route so they don't go haywire in terms of doing the delivery and drive those extra kilometers. And the technology is emerging for, let's say, things like preventive maintenance, or so you're able to get your vehicle to a garage before it breaks down. So all these things together.
So tell me one thing.
Yeah.
I'm taking you to 2030 now. How much more innovative will your battery be then, which could help Karun or even a Rajat to design his product better?
So I don't, 2030 is a long time, but I think within next 2-3 years, batteries will really function as what we call as digital twin. So almost a real time of the of battery will be available on our computers with a lot of data, which optimizes its performance almost in real time. And obviously, while doing this, enhancing safety and any predictive maintenance issues, and also enhancing its lifetime in the process. So that's the direction the battery world is really.
Actually, I'm gonna answer the question for you and then put you on a spot. Battery as a percentage of the cost of the product is say 50% right now. What will it be in 25 and in 30?
Very, I've always been wrong about this answer.
It
So
doesn't look
the
like
entire world predicted battery prices to just constantly come down, never go up. But last 12 months has been a rude shock to the industry, where some of the raw material and commodity prices have gone up upwards of 3-digit percentage, right? So almost doubling. So I think it's overall due to volume and the world adding like 100 to 200 gigawatt hours, the direction obviously is coming down. But I think now we are also realizing it's a highly commodity linked game, which will provide, which will cause these shocks.
And with inflation working the way it is working across the world right now, well, could be anybody's guess actually. No, thanks, Anand. That was brilliant. I'm going to turn this back to Rajat. Rajat, they're all talking, but you have to manufacture, right? Karuna will always come and whack you that ये product ठीक नहीं है, product ठीक नहीं है. Anant कहेगा मैंने battery ready, but you have to manufacture the product. Right. What's going on? Are you making special products for them? Do you have a product line which will be very different 5, 7, 10 years later? What are you doing about it?
So, Som, that's exactly where sort of dispatch comes in. The problem that these guys have been facing, the fleet guys, especially Karuna and Amazon and so on, they've not been able to make that transition fast enough is because they don't have a product in the two-wheeler category built for last mile, built for those 75, 100, 150 kilometers sort of applications. So they're all sort of they're having to use products originally designed and engineered for personal mobility. And that's why they're seeing more breakdowns, they're seeing part failures and component failures. That's why they're having trouble with their fleets transitioning to EVs quickly enough. So that's where
Karuna, is that true? Karuna, is that true? Are you having trouble transitioning your fleet to EV?
Absolutely. I think two-wheeler is a big untapped opportunity in India. And largely, as Rajat said, I mean, we don't have the vehicles which are well and truly designed for last mile operations. So while the intent is very strong in our team to get onto EVs, the gap currently is, and therefore we are, as Amazon, partnering with OEMs as well. To build product which is suited for the last mile operation. So bang on Rajat when he says that.
Can Rajat expect a private equity investment from Amazon into his company?
I mean, we don't comment on it like this, but then obviously we are looking out for products in this space very, very eagerly and working with OEMs on that. Yeah.
Rajat, good place to be. You can get a good multiple here. I mean, you guys all work on multiples is what I understand. No, but I'm going to turn this back to Mr. Sriram. They will keep talking unless you develop the software. Neither will the product come out, nor will the BMS pack come out. And obviously, they will not get the end product. What are you doing from a technology angle to resolve this? Any special technology that could be differentiated for products which are first mile, last mile based versus a regular EV?
Yeah, thanks. So, I mean, see this, the whole discussion is very lively. I love it. and thanks for the opportunity. See, Kogos actually started as a technology player, but slowly as we move in, as Karna was mentioning, we see a lot of gaps in actually the whole fulfillment, because the Amazons have delivered great experiences on the clicks, on both on the indexing of the products and availability, and in fact getting down not just on the quality of the product but also on the delivery, right? The smiles, what he is mentioning. But however, on the back end, he can say how much burn he takes on the back, right, to get all this delivered, all these first mile, mid mile, last mile movements. So that's where we got into fulfillment also. So we work in more than 300 cities now with more than 200 customers, helping them out in all the city logistics. As you rightly mentioned, technology is very important, because see, ultimately that's where you can bring down not only the cost but also the time, right? Because time is money. I mean, eventually the time is money. I mean, if they can deliver it as promised, as the ETA given, any customer would return. Probably they would not care for 10-20 minutes. Maybe I'm wrong, but they would definitely look at the reliability of the service and the quality of the delivery. That is the most important, and appreciate the technology improvements both on the hardware, because it's very needed for the country.
So
Whether
is Rajat producing hardware according to you?
Yes, of course, right? It's a
How,
product.
Rajat, you moved from manufacturing to being a hardware manufacturer now? See,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
how the software boys think.
No, I mean, see, ultimately we are the consumers, right? Like Amazon. So we are the operators. We are the service delivery providers for whether it is Amazon or any of their brothers too, right? Eventually, the last mile, which is the most expensive part, if you ask me per ton kilometer or anything, right? That's the most expensive part. You need to reduce that, and also as when it comes to the net carbon neutrality, which we need to get in, the biggest consumption is in the cities. Forget about the highways and others. The biggest consumption is cities because of this, stop start traffic to everything. It's very hard for you to determine the ETAs and also the kind of capacity you would definitely require, whether it is a two-wheeler, whether it is a three-wheeler or a four-wheeler. That's where we all help in. We not only help in planning but also delivering it, right? We train the drivers, which is very important part of the whole fleet, right? Because Amazons have gone and have gone to very high extent of AI and everything on their backend. But when it comes to the delivery part, ultimately a human has to do it, right? We
Okay,
expect driverless stuff later, but yeah.
we've heard too much happening on manufacturing, on batteries, on the software. People believe everybody else is hardware now. But I have a different question. I'm gonna put you in a time capsule. The four of you are in a time capsule now, and you've just gone a little older, and you're in 2032. 10 years from today. Karuna, I'm going to leave middle mile out for now.
Sure.
Just between first mile and last mile, what portion of total B2B movement in first mile and last mile is going to be electric in India?
Yeah.
Give me a number.
Yeah, I can kind of come in, and we have gone public on it, so it's really not a time capsule. It's a clear path to how we want to go. So our commitment is first of all 2050, which is the Paris Convention, net zero carbon. Amazon was the first signatory to the pledge that we'll do it by 2040, and by 2030 is when we have said 50% will be net carbon zero. And when we say 50% of the shipments, Som, for you to understand, because it's right from the product is picked before it comes into the fulfillment center.
Including middle mile?
Yeah. It includes
it
includes from the time we pick up the product, get into the fulfillment center, move it through the pipeline and get to the customer. Whether the net carbon is in delivery, it's in moving the product, or in the packaging, or the energy which we use, will be net carbon. 50% of our product will be net carbon 50 and zero, and 100% by 2040. And to enable that, I mean, we have taken EV is a big, as Sriram was also calling out. The EV is an important attribute in this whole thing. So we really anticipate, and we have given the numbers again in public, that by 2030 we'll have 100,000 electric vehicles across the world. In India, by 2025, we'll have 10,000 three-wheelers and four-wheelers, which will be electric vehicles. And I don't want to put a number, but these are better than what we have committed publicly.
So basically, the stock price for Anant and Rajat's company just went up. They could use this statement right here to tell their analysts, this is what we've heard and come, and our multiple just improved. But Anant, back to you, and the same question back to you. What percentage of total B2B movement, could become electric in India for first mile and last mile? Forget middle mile right now.
Regarding the multiple, I'm still a private company.
Okay, there you go.
So, but
the listing fee went up.
Yes. No, but as Karuna said, again, I can't put a number, but I think majority of the last mile delivery, at least, 50% could be right, 70% could be right. Some number between them could be right. Is definitely going to be electric. Even today, there is so much demand, and the real problem is not with demand. It's with number one, supply, and number two, infrastructure related to charging and all. And over 5 years, that definitely will be streamlined, smoothened out, and one can, with the fuel pricing, the battery pricing, this clean energy, sustainability, absolutely majority of the delivery, I think, in the last mile will be electric.
See, I'm a consultant, right? I like to chase money. Whichever direction the money flows, we flow along with it. We're like that river. So Rajat, Anand didn't give us a fixed number, but he used two numbers, 50% and 70% on the last mile side. Are you going to go higher than that?
So most definitely. I'll tell you why. We're discussing sustainability here, but forget sustainability for once. It's more about economics.
Yeah.
Today, a delivery rider on a two-wheeler doesn't make more than 15,000 rupees delivering food in the biggest cities, right? For them, 15,000, the cost of living is going to keep increasing, and 15,000 even today is falling short. Same way for companies that run their own fleets, unit economics on last mile is just not working out. The only way to improve their cost structures is to move towards EV. So even if sustainability wasn't an incentive, unlike companies like Amazon that are actually serious about it, just the sheer cost is incentive enough to move to electric. And it's already a surprise to us. When we started our company and we looked into this space, it was already a surprise for us that the delivery fleets had not transitioned already to a 10-20 kind of percentage rate. It was sub 2%. And that for us was a surprise, because if the economics are so much better, why aren't they transitioning faster? And it turns out it's a technology, it's a product problem, it's a infrastructure problem. As Anant mentioned, it's a supply chain problem, which all of it needs to be sort of solved for.
No, Anant actually brought it up in his conversation earlier also, the whole concept of, I completely agree with you, Rajat. What Anant also said on the TCO piece, right? It eventually comes down to the TCO working in favor. And I mean, obviously, we're all good human beings, we're all good nationals, so we like sustainability, but ultimately, doesn't TCO become the driver for adoption? Because at the end of the day, in my personal opinion, this whole concept of first mile and last mile works for a different reason. The concept of first mile and last mile through electric works because adoption in electric will be highest by a factor of 2 only, and those 2 factors are geographical circulation of movement and asset sweat. Anywhere where the correlation between the geographical circulation within a particular geography and the asset sweat is high, that is where adoption will happen first. And first mile, last mile fits right into that, it's a B2B game. So asset sweat actually means money. More money means more movement means lesser downtime. Hence the business is happy and the driver is happy. And that correlation kind of works well for this. So thanks for bringing that back into the focus, Rajat. I completely agree with you over there. Sriram, back to you. And do you believe, is there a factor from a technology angle which could help adoption increase better? Or first of all, do you agree to adoption of electric vehicles in first mile, last mile? Question 1. And then what are the other factors that could accelerate it?
We're a
Maybe
very
he could have a
strong,
different point of view.
yeah, we're a very strong proponent of electric and sustainability. We started in 2019 working with OEMs to bring out, especially the vehicles design. Unfortunately, we were working more on three-wheelers and four-wheelers. So we got three-wheelers. We did not have two-wheelers per se, but we're looking at them too. Yes, it has to be. And as you said very rightly, the adoption can happen only in first mile and last mile, where not only the movement is high, but the costs are also high, right? The overall, just imagine people driving 150, 200, 300 kilometers in a day, right? Whether it is ride sharings or whether it is last mile deliveries, which they do. But if you rightly plan, and probably Karna will also okay this, most of the routes which are being delivered, and on a in a 2 hour, 3 hour or 4 hour window, they will all be like 30-mile radius, 30 mile to 40 mile. They are limiting themselves to these purely because of the current infrastructure and the products, because they cannot just run this over 100 kilometer, 200 kilometers. Just imagine the scenarios. They have to not only bring in sustainability, they also need to see what makes the sustainability work today, right? That's where the technology and software all comes into play too, right? However, as the charging infrastructure is democratized more, and we can find it in a quick charge, as well as the products like what Anant and Rajat are building, where it would help these to sustain the vagaries of India. EV adoption, I'm pretty sure by 2040, India will be fully moving to EV adoption.
I mean, I love that word, democratized charging. Anant, question back to you. One, what do you mean by the word democratized charging, if you may? And two, what's this whole gig about battery swapping versus fixed charge versus combination? Which way do you think the market to play out in these options, since you're playing the battery game to the most extent?
So no, along with battery, we have an equally large charging business.
I mean,
which is focused
I
on,
use that exclusively amongst the two, but
right. No, so so democratized charging really, in simple layman terms, means availability of charging ubiquitously. Almost
free
everywhere.
or paid. I mean, in the Delhi government, democracy means a lot of facilities for free. Also, I'm used to that.
So maybe there is some freebies in the beginning years, but I think in longer term paid. But regarding swapping and fixed charging, no one size fits all. Today we see both these options coexisting, because we are in the early part of infrastructure development, and neither of the infrastructure is really developed a lot. So there are pockets of swapping, there are pockets of fixed charging. But ultimately, it really depends on the business, the businesses which are operating and their models. For example, a food delivery rider who does 120 kilometers a day and doesn't really know where he's going to go next, and therefore find a charging point. If there is big swapping network, something like that would really be good for a rider like that. So least downtime, 120 kilometers, which is hard on fixed battery. It's not that it's impossible, but likelihood is less. But for like some business like grocery delivery, which is operating hub and spoke model, and do have rightly sized batteries, but can come back to the hub, do 2-3 times of opportunity charging in the day, maybe fixed battery also works. But ultimately, I really think over longer term, for the same use cases, both will kind of deliver the results which the user wants. It will boil down to preferences and really granular details of how you tweak your business to derive the maximum efficiency out of a certain type of
since you're in the charging business, I'll ask you a simple question for the audience here. Do you believe every petrol station will have a charging station and a battery swapping station in the future? Yes or no?
No, so my answer is straight no. So I, in fact, don't understand the relationship between a petrol station and a charging station. Petrol stations are at certain physical places for some reason, whereas all the charging stations need to be, in my view, at a place which are within 5 to 7 minutes of walking distance from some area where a driver can go sit for 10-20 minutes, eat, or do something at least, right?
So like in a mall, for example, that could be a charging
not
station?
necessarily a mall. It could be an isolated place which is not linked to a real estate such as a mall or an office, but somewhere within 5 minutes vicinity there is something or the other to do, right? Because
Are you building that? Are you building that?
no, so we are a product supplier, but we work with a lot of charge point operators, and that's where a lot of these learnings come. Yeah, they're going to be charging at mall. There is going to be charging at petrol station, but it's not like what's the best way to put charging network? Okay, let's choose 100% of the petrol station. I don't think that's the way. There may be 10-20% places which are coexisting, but largely these infrastructures will come up in different places because they provide the best value at those places. Something like swapping station, yes, I think there is a higher fitment with petrol pumps because there's no waiting time. You don't want to be waiting at a gas station, only smell like crude oil, for 1 hour that your car is charging, right? You might as well be close to someone else. Yes.
Karuna, back to you. Will you build a swapping station for some part of your delivery business, both first mile, last mile?
Yeah, so I think our focus is more to get the swapping technology and the infrastructure. So we have a partnership with Sun Mobility to develop for the commercial vehicles because in the first mile and middle mile, a lot of movements are still through the commercial vehicles, which is also one of the focus areas. So so I'm listening to Anand, Sriram, and Rajit. One thing, I think there is as Rajit said, it is sustainability plus cost, right? It really ticks both the boxes, but it's all about, currently there is, when we look at how do we change, one is obviously in getting the right vehicle and things like that, but also in terms of range anxiety is huge. People are always nervous that whether I'll be able to travel from X to Y and not get stopped in between. So how we are able to really scale the whole EV technology on one side, but the whole infrastructure in terms of having the battery swapping, charging, maintenance, servicing, and also, of course, because there's high initial cost in these vehicles. And you asked the right question to Anant, how much will battery cost come down? Because that is what will steadily bring the vehicle cost down as we get the technology up in batteries. And but EV leasing is another subject which is very important for the whole transition to happen, because it is still a high initial investment as compared to others. So how many of the FMC companies are actually moving towards taking EV on board from leasing and maintenance perspective?
So it doesn't sit on your balance sheet, essentially. It's a balance sheet play there. No, I get it.
Yeah.
So, but just for clarity's sake, so with your tie-up with Sun Mobility is to actually build swapping stations at maybe warehouses or extensions of your warehouses, so that a driver can come, take out his battery, put in a new battery, put that for charge, go do his gig, do his 120 kilometers, come back, and then the second driver can pick the same vehicle up. Is that the way you're looking at this in the future?
Yeah. So here the idea is to deploy commercial vehicle in our fleet that are compatible with Sun's battery swapping network. Right. So I think that is where we are investing in terms of Sun Mobility able to get the swapping infrastructure plus the battery for the commercial vehicles.
Rajit, are you building a special product for India? And is India different to the rest of the world when it comes down to EV products in the future, especially for first mile, last mile?
Absolutely. So we're starting off with two-wheelers. We are also developing commercial vehicles, MCVs and LCVs. But when it comes to two-wheelers, it's not just India. Right now, there is no such vehicle globally, which is grounds up built for last mile sort of applications. So we started off with looking at a few different pillars that we needed to design this product on, right? So toughness is most critical, because with personal mobility, you're doing a maximum of 25 kilometers a day. With last mile fleet applications, it goes all the way up to 200, 250 kilometers in certain cases.
250 kilometers a day for movement.
Yes.
So the statement you've made is if somebody uses a commercial vehicle, two-wheeler for B2B business, he will end up driving 250 kilometers a day.
No, so it starts at 60 kilometers and it goes
Okay.
up to 250 kilometers
Okay.
depending on applications.
Wow.
But again,
so you could end up needing 3 charges a day.
Yeah, because these are vehicles that are used by mobility as a service companies in multiple shifts. So multiple riders are riding them over a single day. And so on the swap versus charge question, we feel for the short to mid-term, swap will be sort of dominant till such time that charging times come down to about sub 10 minutes or so, at least sub 20 minutes.
Anant, will a battery be able to be charged sub 20 minutes?
So I think, yeah, the general battery, technology.
80% of the battery.
Yeah, exactly. So generally the technology direction is towards fast charging under 20 minutes, and that applies for car batteries, which can give you 400 kilometers to three-wheeler batteries and maybe to even two-wheeler batteries in future. So I think that's the general battery direction, and there's a lot of innovation around the chemistry to get to sub 20-minute charge.
Wow, that's an interesting one, because the minute it comes down to sub 20 minutes, in a way that whole swapping business opportunity, a great swapping business opportunity, tends to lose its relevance also to a certain degree.
So it's not just about
sorry. Yeah, there is a time by the time such technologies develop and at what cost. So even today, you do have batteries like LTO, etc., which can be charged very, very fast, sub 20 minutes. But the cost point is too high, which makes the TCO unviable. But that's the direction. So ultimately, when there is a technology, there is a need in the market. Cost also with scale up comes down. So it's more of a time game rather than.
Go ahead, Rajat. You were saying something.
Yeah, so it's not just a matter of charging time, but it's also access to a plug point. Right? We have to understand that a B2B delivery rider, someone who's a gig economy worker, doesn't necessarily live. Fortunately, unfortunately, they don't necessarily live in houses that have parking spots right outside with plug points. And 97% of the fleet in India is owned by these guys. It's not owned by companies like Amazon and Zomato and Swiggy, right? They own the fleet.
97%?
More, actually.
Wow.
So certain companies.
So it's an individual person's business, actually.
Yeah, that's why it's called the gig economy, right? Because they're coming in with their vehicle. So Amazon only hires them if they have a vehicle, not that they'll hire them and provide them a vehicle. Right, so Amazon is an asset-light company in that sense, or Zomato or anybody else. So, unfortunately, not at all times would these people have access to a plug. And even if it's not a fleet-owned vehicle, it's a rider-owned vehicle, they may be doing in excess of 100 kilometers, 150 kilometers, even if it's one. So, to give you an example, a Zomato rider, a small percentage of them in Delhi NCR does 200 kilometers a day, just one guy, right? One scooter or one motorcycle. So that's the kind of usage they need. And they don't necessarily have, A, fast charging is not available today, and B, they don't have plugs at their residence so that they can take a break, charge over 3 hours and then do another round.
And the business model for that, how will they charge for that? How much do they know they're paying for it, etc., etc.? So that is also a big aspect of figuring out this whole charging business. Actually, I'm going to take this back to Amazon, because they're the end users to a great extent of this. What is the innovation that you need out of Rajat, Anant, Prasad to make this business a lot more viable than it currently is? What is your expectation out of that?
Yeah. So I think couple of things. While we partner strongly with manufacturers to get it, so it's not like we have just left it and waiting. But in terms of initial cost, that's a big one. In terms of range, I mean, getting the range reliable, something which we can tell a rider that this is the range that you can expect, and there is no anxiety in between whether I'll be able to deliver and I will get the next charging point where. So it's more on the operational lines. On the infrastructure, of course, a lot is being done in terms of charging. We are getting it at our stations, plus where it's available, democratized, as Anant was saying. So, but our ask is clearly in terms of bringing the initial cost down, and the range is something if we can settle with, and the charging infrastructure. I think those are three things. We have a strong partnership with. Because everything is here, make in India in this as far as EV is concerned. So there is nothing which is coming outside, and we are together in it. We have strong plans, and I think with what I heard from Rajit, Anant, and Sriram, I believe we'll have an accelerated path to what we are working towards.
Anant, I have a question at a macro level for you, at an India level. I'm putting you at that pedestal now. For a lot of years, we paid a lot of money. I was hearing a joke the other day that, India is in a spot wherein we've paid to the east side of us for fuel for the last 50 years. And now we're going to pay to the west side of us for the fuel. Do you think that's a true statement? And do you believe that we'll have these teething troubles of not able to get enough minerals, not able to get the right material required for lithium-ion batteries? Do you think this will actually wash itself out as technology progresses?
Right. So it's a question of both establishment of manufacturing facilities in India, which comprise of a substantial part of value chain, right from let's say the minerals to the material, which is processed mineral converted to materials, which finally goes into cell manufacturing, and then the last stage, which is the battery pack assembly or not. So thankfully, the PLI scheme of the government for 50 gigawatt hour was executed recently. A lot of companies bid for it, and we are going to have 50 gigawatt hour of manufacturing. In fact, I know a lot of companies who have plans to do large scale manufacturing even without being a part of PLI. So, and actually, you may see manufacturing upwards of 60, 70 gigawatt hours in India, and there are decisions which are linked to availability of material. So yes, on a geopolitical level, it's right that if you choose certain chemistry, material is not easily available. Even for Tesla, material is not easily available. But that boils down to choosing the right chemistry for which the material value chain is more global, not concentrated in China. But some of the chemistries like sodium ion, etc., there is a lot of mineral value chain which can be found in India. So I think all these aspects will play out, and eventually, after setting up this manufacturing and advancement of technology, it shouldn't be as large as a problem as it is today. Yeah, and then
can you tell us a little more on sodium ion? I'm just very intrigued with the amount of, like I said, I'm a consultant. I follow money. And the amount of money that is flowing into that direction is unparalleled right now.
Right. So I think it got, at least for us in India, first time it hit our lens and got really famous when CATL announced big investment in sodium ion. And then when Reliance bought the UK company Faradian.
Correct.
So I don't know much about the chemistry except 3-4 things. It's similar to LFP in terms of energy density, which means it can work for a lot of applications in India. It's very safe, meaning even if you have a badly designed battery pack, which I think is the main reason for some of these safety issues, still sodium ion doesn't catch any fire, etc. Technically it means you can run it down to bare bone and still it's a safe battery. Third aspect is a lot of value chain in terms of minerals and materials may be available in non-concentrated way, like with reliance on a particular country, and a lot of that may be available in India. So I think, but largely I think it's going to see stationary applications first. That's at least from my limited knowledge, what I know, and later into mobility in specific application where you need very high discharged or charged, like hybrid application or hydrogen fuel cell vehicle applications, etc. But it's very early stages. I think all of us will find a lot more in the coming time.
No, your limited knowledge was more than combined knowledge of quite a few people, I must say. But the other aspect I just wanted to bring on to this is we're all talking about sustainability, electric vehicles, etc. I mean, Anand spoke a lot about sodium, but then there is this whole thing that is started other technologies beyond lithium ion now. Rajat, Karuna, both of you.
I generally don't like to comment on battery tech till it's been commercially
Okay.
or made viable, because it can take years before any new chemistry can be accessible. Even if you look at NMC, we were at $1,000+ per kilowatt hour just 10 years back, right?
Right.
So it's taken a while to get there, and now the prices are going up again because of commodity fluctuations. So there are a lot of different chemistries that are being worked on with the intent of making safer batteries, and the second intent is to make them fast charge capable. Right? There are companies working on 5-minute charging tech, but till such time that these batteries are actually commercialized or at least tested at pilot scale, and we know where the raw material is coming from, it's very hard to comment, because most often, there are multiple claims, but it may be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, before we see them being used.
No, I mean, Rajat, I'm just going to throw in like they said, five intelligent men should throw in a few stats. Currently, if you look at the amount of fuel that could be available in India in 10 years' time, EO5 is, 5% ethanol blending. EO5, E10, 15, 20, CNG, LPG. Then there is this whole concept of PHEV, HEV, throw in hydrogen, throw in green hydrogen. So there was a grid that I saw the other day, which said that the combination available could be 25. So 25 different variants of fuel types could be available, out of which, say, 50% could be so-called green. I mean, well to wheel, even electric could maybe not be green right now. So, where do you think policy is moving towards democratizing fuel in India to a certain extent? Any views around that? And Karuna, I'm going to come back to you on hydrogen in 2 minutes.
So, can I just
yes, please.
Yeah,
Prasad, please.
I mean, that's exactly what we were coming, because green logistics is needed, and unfortunately electric vehicles are still in their nascent stage, even with a big push from giants. Okay, so those combinations are very much needed, whether it is
so they will all survive according to you.
100%. You just take the city logistics today, right? There are 8 million of these commercial vehicles. I'm not talking about two-wheelers, right? There are 8 million commercial vehicles within India running. Okay, and just imagine any other technology just ramping up to that size of sheer number will take time. So to make our commitments to the world and to our own future, right, we need to bring in these various options to make the whole logistics still green. And not just the fuel options and this, but also what we need to see is many of these challenges with respect to this community, right? Who is actually driving it? They live in suboptimal locations and situations where their availability to these technologies and infrastructures are limited. That is where we all come into play, right? Where we, so as an aggregator, we help it out along with the enterprises, right, to figure out, which is the nearest and easiest way of doing things, so that the cost will be still be limited, and also we are committed to the green logistics. Just imagine most of these guys, if they do not have an opportunity to work, what would they do? Is just they roam around, right? Because they have to live. That's their sustainability, right? They have to live through, and that is where these all will come into play. And as you rightly said, CNGs and everything will survive for a matter of time, until a point that we find our own energy source within the country, which is more democratized, and the initial costs and running costs come down. So though we all have our own wish list of 2030s or further, we need to work together. That's the only way we can beat out the climate change. There is no other way. And to that, I agree with Karna also, because it's not just the transportation alone, right? There are many things which contribute to green, whether it is packaging, whether it is even your whole warehousing. Even if you ask me, the kind of fleet you operate, not just EV alone, right? A mix of things are very much needed to bring this whole thing down. And we're happy, at least, we all are fortunate to talk all this and we are contributing to this. So we should be really happy with all of us here.
Karuna, back to you. Will 25 fuels survive? Will Amazon invest in all 25 of them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, some of them are interesting. Some of them we are trying as well. For example, for the hydrogen cells for emergency backup is something more from the generator side. We are going to pilot and see how, because it's an exciting technology, right? From a hydrogen perspective, and we just want to make sure that we are invested in the whole development from the early stage. So, but currently we do believe that electric vehicle is a viable option, is the right option, which we need to double down at this moment, because I mean transport still contributes a high percentage of carbon load in the environment, and this is a viable option. And again, we don't like to challenge the scientists. This is what the scientists have said. This is what the science is currently pointing to, and therefore we are very heavily into doubling down on EVs at this moment, but obviously staying very open-minded to some of the new ones which are coming up, as you mentioned, hydrogen.
Anant, are you making some investments there in moving beyond conventional, let's call it conventional chemistry right now?
As Karuna said, I think our story is the same, doubling down on electric right now. But hydrogen fuel cell, I think, is we did a lot of study in our company on that. It's a good technology, because now primarily it's a different topic, but it's rising because of need for green ammonia and green shipping, where hydrogen plays a much more prominent role, and it's the only thing which can be done. And for that, there's a lot of hydrogen infrastructure which needs to be set up around generation, which will eventually probably lead to usage of hydrogen even in mobility. But from all the analysis we have done, it's largely for let's say class 8 trucks or above, let's say 30 tons, 40 tons. But again, who knows? There is Toyota Mirai, which is quite famous.
It was driven to a parliament recently.
Yes, absolutely. So again, maybe early days, but it's a technology which has made an impact in the West, in a lot of countries in Europe, in the US. So definitely it will be a technology coexisting in India. What time frame had to say?
Rajat, you're hearing some new technology that we haven't heard of. You want to bring in any new jargon on technology?
I have a couple of points on the topic. Number one, I think these 25 odd fuels that you mentioned and so on, it sends a very confused message to the industry. People developing powertrains, people developing vehicles. So overall, and the infrastructure guys, right, sends a very confusing message. We're talking about better ethanol infused fuel. We're talking about hydrogen. We're talking about EV. We cannot go in all directions, right? What is happening now is that because of all these different types of messaging, the big players in the auto industry are sort of sitting at the fence and saying, we'll continue to make fuel cars, petrol diesel cars, and at the most make CNG cars. I recently had tweeted about this. There was this chairman of this large auto company who attended an EV conclave, but kept talking about CNG. So it's sending a very confused message. People are not sure where they're headed. So I think the direction should be one, and then there should be a plan B, but you cannot make plan A, B, C, and then have 3 other backup plans. Because
actually, we needed somebody from Niti over here to answer this question. I can't answer it, at least. If anybody else wants to take a crack at it, feel free.
No, I think as long as industry is put on one track, this is going to be a longer gestation period unless the industry is all sort of unified in which direction to go in to it.
I mean, see,
Okay.
on the transportation per se, no doubt, the only technology which has proven and going forward is electric. Okay. For when it comes to long, bigger commercial vehicles where you need to hurry, right? There are some companies who have done larger trucks on electric. It takes time and expense. Initial cost is too high. So there you need to have like green hydrogen and others. And see, as a fuel becomes the most critical thing where wars are also done across the world. So you need to have something which you can run the country, right? So there are other applications other than transport, as you mentioned. There are stationary applications. There is like all this fertilizer and others, right? So there are so many things. So when you see these 25 fuels, don't just get confused. It's just for transport alone. There are so many things which require it. And also there is a phase out of these existing vehicles before new vehicles and new things pick up. And you have to run and sustain the country on these 8 million to 10 million different trucks which are running on the things. Yes, we need to move around. Until the time, it's kind of a phase out manner.
So we have 5 minutes left. There are 5 of us here. This is going to be a rapid fire round, but I need 2 answers from you, and they have to be percentages. So the order will be Karuna, Anant, Rajit, Prasad, and me last. So I'll be the most intelligent one. But 2 questions. 2030, what percentage of total first mile, last mile delivery will happen through an electric vehicle? And a pro for it and a con for it. Karuna, go for it. And I need a number this time.
Yeah. So again,
Financial Express needs to print a number. Amazon says that 100% movement in 2030 is going to be electric. Something like that.
Yeah. So what we have on our radar very clearly is net carbon zero. 50% of our packages will be net carbon zero by 2030 and 100% by 2040. I think that's the one which we are working on. And just maybe 30 seconds on what got discussed before. I completely agree with what Rajit said. I mean, we need to double down really on EV. That's the technology which is right in front of us, gives us everything that we need to achieve that. And we are really doubling down on that.
Okay. Thank you, Rajit. Thank you, Karuna. Prasad, on to you. Your prediction. Your crystal balling.
I would vote for EV for sure on green logistics, of course, and being green everywhere.
Give me a number.
I expect at least for the last mile. I'm talking about the last mile and the first mile within the city should be at least 50%. At least
50%
will be done through an electric. Yes.
Anant.
Yeah.
For
sure.
Also,
and on the go ahead, Karan.
So no, as I said earlier, I would stick between 50 and 70%. Definitely, that should be a goal for us as a.
So your range is 50 to 70%. All first mile, last mile delivery will move electric to that extent.
Yes.
Wow, that gives you a fairly big portfolio to play with. Rajit, last words on that.
So maybe I don't comment on that, but I'll tell you about what fleets have said. There are 2 pledges that are running globally: EV 100 and the Climate Pledge, where Amazon started one of these 2. And your majority of the fleets in the world, not just in India, whether it's food delivery, e-com, etc., they've pledged to a complete transition by 2030, and in the other one by 2035 or 40, if I'm correct. So, but in my opinion,
you've taken Anand's 50, 70 to 100. Would I get that right?
I'm not saying that the companies that use these fleets or run these fleets are saying they need to do it, and they made a promise to the world. So they need to sort of stick to it, and we need to ensure we give them the right tools.
I actually believe I'm the most aggressive on this to that extent. Then I actually believe, for a simple fact, that this is a TCO based activity. Sustainability is probably the second angle. I completely believe in that. I completely believe that Anant will be able to reduce the cost of battery to a certain extent. I believe in technology. I also believe in the fact that green will become a way forward, because when our kids are doing this session, they will be a lot more focused towards sustainability, towards green, because they will inherit a much worse off world than what we inherited. And for them, it will not be a matter of money. For us, it's a matter of money. So I believe TCO will drive this for the next 10 years. But beyond that, it will become a matter of sustenance. And that is when adoption will actually hit the roof. Because this will move, according to me, the consultant talk here is that this will move arithmetic progression for a few years. Then you will hit an inflection point, and it will move from arithmetic progression to geometric progression. And the minute it hits that inflection point to geometric progression, you will see adoption increase by multifold. So I'm going to stick my neck out and go with at least a 70% on first mile, last mile delivery, at least metro cities to that extent. So that's the gig, I think. And I just wanted to make sure that I also throw myself in the pool with you guys. I don't want to leave you high and dry.
One more thing, very quickly. For a lot of these companies, it's not a matter of when actually, because or how long they have, because they don't have any time at all, right?
Yeah.
Because the unit economics on last mile delivery are so poor that if they don't do it soon enough, they risk the entire business. So I'm not talking about companies that are like Amazon running the first mile, mid mile, and last mile. There are a lot of companies just doing the last mile. For them, there's absolutely no option.
Oh, thank you. I mean, that's absolutely brilliant. So, but that's our gig, guys. Thank you.